Welcome to Makilala, which means get to know in Tagalog, the first Philam TV talk show in the New York metropolitan area. I have here Miss Cristina Pastor, Miss Jen Ferrer, and we have a fascinating episode coming up today featuring one of our top young Filipino-American leaders, Mr. Edward Santos, who will share his experiences walking through the corridors of Philippine Power. But before we dive into that, we want to introduce Miss Hanna Choa Yu, our new co-host for this particular episode. Hanna, welcome to Makilala. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I think it's such an honor to just be in the same table with such accomplished Filipino Americans.
Oh, thank you.
And I can't wait to see how this show will turn out. I think it's going to be amazing.
And what do you do, Hanna?
So I actually am a delegate to the United Nations, and apart from that, I also consult and edit for Zara, the clothing company.
Okay, that's
Wow.
awesome. Who knew that those two worlds could actually connect, international relations and fashion? So, I actually know that Cristina wants to bring up a recent community issue that has been developing since mid-January, the case of our friend, Mr. Randy Hiner.
Yeah, there's been a tragedy within the community. One of the pillars, one of our community leaders, Randy Hiner, a very talented person, creative artist, journalist, art critic, was brutally attacked January 17th. And he's been seriously hurt, and he's currently in hospital trying to heal and trying to recover his memory of what happened. So a suspect has been arrested and charges have been filed. But what I find really troubling about this case is that the charges have been downgraded from assault to misdemeanor. So the whole idea of this monologue, maybe, is that I just wanted to call on the community to maybe keep an eye on this case. Let's not drop the ball on this one. And let's follow this up closely, and let's make sure that our friend Randy Hiner gets justice.
Thank you, Cristina. I know that Randy is actually close to many of us because he's such an active figurehead in the community.
And he's a member of the Filipino American Press Club.
Yeah.
He's really such a nice guy. So
Very.
It's a sad, sad time that we're going through this. So.
Exactly.
That's right.
So now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our future guest, Mr. Edward Santos. Ed was chosen as one of the 10 Filipino-American Leadership Program delegates for an immersion trip to the Philippines this past July. And I was actually able to accompany him because I was one of the 10 as well. I don't know what your first reaction was when you first saw your name on the website, but I literally screamed.
I was super excited
and
myself.
Jumped, yeah. So please share some experiences that you've had in the Philippines, including some lessons learned.
Sure. Well, where to start? I think for me, the first thing is just I haven't been to the Philippines since 2007, and so coming there, I really found so many different changes. But you know, things obviously stayed the same. The spirit that my parents had as Filipinos was still there, and you can see that in everything. It kind of permeated through everything, whether it was money spent from foundational works to arts and culture, and the cultural ceremonies that they had, even visions of entrepreneurship. I think they all have some sort of connection to the Filipino spirit.
What are some of the changes that you've seen?
I think when you go there, it's the infrastructure has changed.
For the good or for the?
I think it's for the good. What I've noticed is that at least structurally, there's so many more kind of destinational spots that you can go to for me to learn about heritage, to be able to have that opportunity to kind of learn more. And so I think they have been very positive changes. You look at the changes that they're trying to do on Ep7 Avenue, right? They're trying to make sure that there's not as much traffic along that major corridor. And
Has it improved? Has traffic improved?
I don't remember. I mean, it's
Good
still
question.
it's still pretty congested. But I think that there are some movement to try and make it better. And whether that be through better public transportation, and having that that be the workaround to other different ways that infrastructure can help make something better.
Were there like
So
more makeshift houses
Right.
still in the area, or?
During our specific trip, we didn't really see much of that part of the Philippines,
Oh,
actually.
really?
Yeah, no,
They kinda
we-
like,
It was so, like, the schedule was literally packed, jam-packed. Every minute was scheduled.
So I think part of your trip was actually meeting some policymakers and some people from government, some people from trade, from media. Was there any particular experience or person that really kind of left an indelible mark?
For good or bad?
My favorite part, at least in meeting people, or having these meetings, were the young kind of Filipino elected leaders from the House and the Speaker. I think we really were able to really understand young leaders in positions of power and what their responsibilities were. And so I thought that was just a great opportunity to learn from them, especially because they are around our age and obviously they have some ability to really create change in the areas that they govern in. And so
I find that really interesting that you met leaders of your own age. Have you noticed that these young leaders come from political families?
the dynasty.
well, yes,
AKA Dynasty?
You
could just say it, Christina.
yes, certainly. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the
And did you
biggest.
talk about that trend in Philippine society, Philippine politics?
Certainly, I think I brought up the question of, if my parents were, my parents left the Philippines to the United States to have a better life and to have that social mobility. And so when you go back, will my parents have that same opportunity to become successful? And I don't know if things have changed yet in that way. Everyone there came from a very rich background, and I think that's how elections are really done still. So it's an interesting kind of aspect of politics in the Philippines that I haven't really kind of immersed myself in, and something kind of new to learn about.
Yeah,
So
I think that's what the
interesting.
program really did for many of us, is that it opened our eyes. It really showed us a different aspect on leaders that are over there. I mean, I know that we met a whole plethora of different types of leaders. We met the vice president, we met the senators, Ches Escudero and Guingona, and they told us some issues that we actually should be familiar with, including dual citizenship, and the right to vote,
Open data.
having transparency, Freedom Information Act.
So really, they talked about that
Yes.
Freedom of Information Act.
Yes, they did.
Well, then
Yes.
why haven't they passed the bill in Congress?
there is a good reason for that.
Well, I wouldn't say it's good necessarily.
not a good reason,
Basically,
but
their explanation on the House was that there wasn't enough infrastructure to make sure that it happened appropriately. And that's obviously one of the biggest things that they're concerned about, is whether or not they can take on initiatives that may affect a huge amount of change.
Did they get ideas from you on how that they can apply within Philippine political conditions?
Well, the thing that they actually mentioned is what I guess it did caught me off guard, because I actually got offended when they said it, was when they said, I don't think PhilAms are picking up their weight. They're not doing as much as they should be in terms of Filipino issues. So they expect us to have more of a say. They don't think that we take the Filipino issues seriously. So I think we should prove them wrong. We should prove them wrong and tell them, look, we're going to initiate this program on dual citizenship, and we're going to try to encourage people to have more of a voice, to take things more seriously.
Right. I know that CONSULT has actually held a lot of kind of community outreach.
Yes.
That's actually brought people from the New York tri-state area to just have more information about things like dual citizenship. Have you guys been involved with that?
Yeah, so one of the biggest, we're always attending consulate events, but one of the initiatives that Rachelle and I are really trying to take on is, working with dual citizenship and seeing where Filipino Americans can become more involved in the Filipino community. And I think that's one of the biggest initiatives I think that we're trying to make moves on to really encourage young Filipinos to be able to make some changes.
Yeah.
How do you reach out to people and entice them to actually have dual citizenship and be involved? Because there's so much corruption. I mean, I don't know if there's still corruption, and as we said earlier,
Never go away.
it's a dynasty. So what's the motivation of those people running for office? Is it really for the good of the country, or is it a hidden agenda that's just good for the little group of people?
Well, I think
I don't know if you picked it up from when you met them.
Well, what I can say about dual citizenship is that the more Filipino Americans who know what the issues are and know what's happening, the better informed, the better political leaders will have.
Yes.
And so that's where our stance comes from, really initiating this, is that the more people who are, the more democratic system that we can have it, the better the overall government will be.
I'm curious, what is your impression of the Philippine president?
For the 0.5 seconds that I met him, he had a nice smile.
Did you have a photo op with him?
We did.
One-on-one?
I did too.
We never got a chance to really speak to him as much as we wanted. But what I hear about him from the people is that he is someone who is really trying to bring great changes to the government, and I think that kind of wishful thinking is new, and something I necessarily haven't seen in prior administrations.
And I think it's reflected, in news media. For once, we're actually touted as one of the big giants that are coming up in Asia right now. I wonder, like, those news reports, does it translate, like, on the ground? Like, do you see actual changes, like more businesses coming up, better infrastructures in the roads?
For me, at least, on a small business level, there were many kind of pop-ups and new businesses that are opening up. We went to visit one that was started by a Filipino American who wanted to start a restaurant, and so created a farm-to-table restaurant in the city. And so I think that there is this opportunity to be entrepreneurial, that I don't think you necessarily had prior to the 90s, 80s.
And do you think that exodus, of Filipinos coming to places like Europe or the United States to, as you said, kind of make a better living, do you think that there will be sort of a reverse exodus where people, like Americans, second generations, would actually go back?
I think that is, I think that that's a possible trend that I can see happening.
There is actually the trend, which I think the ambassador also mentioned, that there is a lot of young Filipino Americans going back to the country and getting their start there.
Yeah, especially it's harder to make a living here.
Yes.
Now with the bad economy
And
that
that's
we
why
had,
we're
and they're all
trying to-
going back to the Philippines.
Yeah, I mean, when we went, we visited so many young people who were really trying to be entrepreneurs, and so there was a group that was starting a beer company, and they are from New York and wanted to start a beer company.
Oh, these are Filipino Americans? Oh, really?
And some of them were not even Filipino, and so it was such an interesting kind of change and aspect of kind of our trip that we didn't realize coming in that that we could ever see.
I think one of the changes the president did, President Aquino, was made registering a business easier and quicker. Before it took like a year or so before you can even register. I'm saying because my brother was in the Philippines. He has a bike shop. I mean, he does custom bike. It's called Benji's Cafe Racer, and his business is booming. Most of his clients are from different parts of the world. And it was easier for him to register a business because President Aquino made a change that, make sure that after 7 days after you file it. So he's thinking that, we have to be business-minded. We have to open up small businesses for other people. So
Yeah.
I mean, cutting
Everyone
out
might check.
cutting out bureaucracy, government bureaucracy, is always going to help kind of encourage new things to happen. And so that's one of just a number of examples that could
So,
really help that.
Ed, before we end, I wanted to ask you, what are your next steps? Some initiatives that you wanted to mention
Sure.
coming after this FylPro program?
Sure. Well, I think there are a couple initiatives that I think are really important, right? The first is the one I'm working on with you, and that's a dual citizenship initiative. And really trying to encourage young people who are able to get dual citizenship to do that, because there's so many advantages to be able to do that. When you think about U.S.-Filipino relations, they're really very tight-knit, and so the opportunity there is really great. And so we're starting, I guess it's a multi-city initiative to try and get as many citizens, Philams, to become Filipino citizens themselves and create the dual citizenship program. And we'll be starting, I think, info sessions in April, and then be able to really get people in June.
So what is the biggest advantage to being a dual citizen?
I think there are so many of them, right? It's the ability to start a business, to invest in Filipino companies. You think about the Philippines has one of the most restrictive foreign investment opportunities in all of the world, and so you have when you have dual citizenship and you have citizenship, you have this opportunity kind of open to you to be able to get so much more out of it.
Yeah. So this episode was actually packed with so much information, and the dynamic team that we have here has just been so amazing. So I'm thanking you, all of you, for all of your input. We actually have a very special guest today joining us on Makilala, Miss Fey Eugenio. Fey is an acoustic guitar player and a jazz vocalist. She is a member of the acoustic band String Attache. For Makilala, she will be performing one of Stevie Wonder's greatest hits, Lately. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Fey Eugenio. Take it away, Fey.
Lately I've had the strangest feelings, with no vivid reason here to find. Yet the thought of losing you's been hanging on my mind. Far more frequently you're wearing me hide, 'cause they always start to cry. 'Cause this time could mean goodbye. Lately I've been staring in the mirror, very slowly picking me apart. Tell myself I have no reason with your heart. Just the other night while you were sleeping, I vaguely heard you whispered someone's name. But when I asked you of the thoughts you're keeping, you just say nothing changed. Well, I'm the man of many wishes. Hope my premonition misses. Where will it be? My eyes won't let me hide, 'cause they always start to hide. 'Cause this time could mean goodbye. Goodbye. Oh, I'm the man of many wishes. I hope my premonition misses, but I really feel my eyes will let me hide, 'cause they always start to cry. 'Cause this time could mean goodbye.
Thank you, Miss Fey Eugenio, for that beautiful rendition of Lately. You could find more of Fey's beautiful talent and a listing of String Attache's future shows on Facebook at facebook.com/stringattacheacoustic. And thank you for Victor for our hair and makeup, and Miss Ivy from Ivy Joy Flowers for the beautiful bouquet that we have here. And I want to just...
I have a question.
Oh.
FylPro is such a competitive program. How did
Yes.
you guys get in?
Well, there's not.
Not that sound like
okay,
that.
Jen, thanks.
Well, there's an application process through the consulate. I think people should be on the lookout for it, and we'll also post it on the FylPro Facebook page.
Yes,
right?
it's going to be facebook.com/FylPro. So FYLPRO. Yeah.
Do you have to have like certain accomplishments, or
I think
what's
you
the
know,
application process like?
I think as long as you can present yourself in a unique way and be able to justify why you really want to go, I think that's one of the most important things.
Yeah.
So you left that place inspired, I guess?
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
definitely.
It definitely changed at least my perspective on how the Philippines has changed. Because from what our parents have been telling us, it's definitely different from what we actually experienced.
That's good.
Yeah.
Very good.
So thank you again for all of you guys. For Hanna, for joining us, for
Thank you
your
so much.
enthusiasm and your expertise in Philippine relations. And Ed, thank you for joining us and for providing some insight on how all the opportunities that young Philams can take part in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we actually wanted to bring up an initiative from the FylPro program, the PhilAm Young Leaders Summit, which intends to bring outstanding young leaders from all over the country to empower, to inspire, and to discuss solutions on how to advance PhilAm advocacies. And you could find out more about the program, which actually the summit, which is on May 3rd, this upcoming May 3rd, and it's going to be in Hawaii.
Wow.
So-
do you guys get to go?
Yes, we do
Do
get
we
to
get
go.
to go with you?
Of course, everyone's welcome. Come by. It will be in Hawaii on May 3rd, and you could find out more information on the summit at www.fylsummit.com. Yeah. So again, if you want to follow Makilala on Twitter at MakilalaTV, you could also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/MakilalaTV. And you could also look at our website at MakilalaTV.com. So how do you guys feel about this episode that we just had?
So I learned so much. You guys are amazing. 'Cause young young Filipino Americans, and you have the passion to give back and inspire a lot of people. I think that's really good.
And I think ultimately this show is not just containing the conversation here, but also carrying it on to the houses of Phil-Ams everywhere. And I think this is a topic that, you know, really would engage, you know, the young people here in the city. So I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, definitely try to, of course, like what Hanna said, continue the conversation with, of course, the hashtag FylPro, so that we could continue finding out more discussions on some of the Phil-Am issues relating to young Phil-Ams.
That's it.
Yeah.
I don't think they had that during our time, right?
Hashtag.
Our time. Yeah.
But thank you again for being here, and we hope to see you again soon at Makilala.